Welcome to the What You Missed podcast, where we talk, debate, and sometimes even argue, but overall let you know what you missed. Thank you so much for joining us on our second episode. My name is Andrew, and I'm back here with my co-host, Anson. This week's episode is all about everything MLB offseason.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun. We have a few teams projected for each free agent, and we're going to talk about where we think where they're projected to land, and then a few surprising teams where they could land. And then we're also going to go into a few other things about MLB. So let's dive right into it, starting off with the top free agent on the market, Juan Soto. One of the obvious spots he could be projected to go is the Yankees. He played very well there last year in the Bronx. Him and Aaron Judge, with that power just in the batting lineup, is really, really good for the Yankees, and I think they could do a really good job with that. Number two, it would be the Mets. This is sort of crazy to go across town, especially, they call it the Subway Series between the Mets and the Yankees. And so for him going to the Yankees and to the Mets, that'd be pretty interesting. But if Pete Alonso, a free agent, does not sign with the Mets as their first baseman, they could use someone who has more power. Because Pete Alonso is their big power guy, and they could really use somebody else. But then again, they also have an okay outfield, but not too good. And they also could use him as a DH. I think Juan Soto as a DH would be very dangerous because he's already a big hitting threat. But if you took him out and only let him practice on hitting, he'd be really good.
Definitely.
One of the last teams would be the Boston Red Sox, and this is a very surprising name, but the Red Sox are using their money this year, really. Mm-hmm. Their field works really well for lefties because of the Green Monster and right, a good power-hitting lefty that can just sort of line drive it into right field, if I'm correct, and just hit it over the wall is really good, especially that would be a really good team for Juan Soto to go. I think it'd be really cool to see Juan Soto in a Red Sox uniform. But I do see him with all those teams. A surprising team, I would say, is the Blue Jays. Mm-hmm. And you're going to hear a lot about the Blue Jays this year because they didn't get Ohtani last year, and they went really hard for Ohtani. Mm-hmm. So they have a lot of money to spend this year. And because Ohtani was the best player last year on the market, and Juan Soto is the best player this year, they could easily get Juan Soto. Definitely. Because they went so hard for Ohtani last year, they could easily get Juan Soto this year. And the last, and you're going to hear this name a lot too, is the Dodgers. And because Ohtani decided to he decided to push back some money and give it to them and didn't take it all at once. So that gave the Dodgers a ton of money, and they very much could use that on a lot of people that just signed Blake Snell. And this could be very good, especially if they got Juan Soto, but they'd be a little overpowered too.
Definitely. The next person we have is Alex Bregman, the previous third baseman for the Astros. The first place he could be going back to is the Astros. It was reported that the Astros extended an unknown sum of money to Bregman. Mm-hmm. I believe he did turn that down, but we don't know the exact amount that he's been extended to. We also have the Yankees. The Yankees and the Mets are both expected to shift their efforts to Bregman if Soto doesn't work out. So if that falls through where neither the Yankees or the Mets or the Yankees get Juan Soto, so the Mets need him, or the Mets get Juan Soto, so the Yankees need him. Either way, whichever team or both teams are expected to shift their efforts to Bregman if they don't get Soto because they're going to need that power hitter. The Nationals need a boost like Bregman. It could be really good just for their team. I know they've struggled a lot in the past, so getting a heavy hitter like Bregman could just really give them something they need. And then the Mariners, they need a replacement for Tyler Locklear. We saw Eugenio Suarez going to the Rangers, and ever since then, Tyler Locklear just really hasn't proven himself to me at all. Hasn't done great, let's just say that. And so I think if they got somebody like Bregman, it would be really valuable for their team and just really replace something that they lost with Eugenio Suarez a year ago.
Yeah, I agree with that. Bregman's a very big threat. He's one of the big. This is a big year of big players that we've seen in the past that are big free agents. And one of the other people was Corbin Burnes, who was really just a free agent last year. Mm-hmm. I believe, and signed with the Orioles. And a few teams that he's projected to go to are the Red Sox are one of them, and the Red Sox need pitching very much. But the Red Sox also have a very friendly pitcher ballpark because of the monster in right field. There's not going to be a lot of right-handed hitters hitting homers unless they're going to hit opposite field. But the Green Monster really helps their ERA, especially because you can't bounce it off, and it's most likely going to be a double or triple. But it really affects the homers, and your homer rate really goes down, and that'd be a really great spot, especially for Corbin Burnes, who really, really could use them. And if they don't get Soto, if the Red Sox don't get Soto, they could really use Burnes. And if they don't, they could get both. But I'm just saying, Burnes is a very good option for the Red Sox because they also really need pitching. And of course, the Orioles. He loved to stay with them. Had a great season last year. He had the most swords last year with 52. And second place was Carlos Rodon with 37. So he was almost a little under 20. But that's still a lot. That's a lot of swords. Swords are when someone makes a really embarrassing swing of the bat at a ball that they should not be swinging at, and they consider those swords. Another big factor with the Mets. You're going to hear the Mets name a lot too, but the Mets need pitching so bad. They just don't have any. Kodak's going to be their best pitcher. They have a few good pitchers behind them that are just not too great. And that's the Mets. That's the Mets' big hole there. And of course, if they don't sign Pete Alonso back, they could really use Corbin Burnes. And I believe that they could do both. I think the Mets always have money. They're in New York. They have the money to spend. So I think that could be a really good option for them. And then a surprising team would be the Blue Jays. Once again, I said you're going to hear a lot of them. But they're also they have a very big need for pitching, and they have a lot of money to spend.
Yeah, definitely. And I think someone like Corbin Burnes, who's just been kind of floating around, really needs to isolate himself. So I think if Corbin Burnes does sign a contract, I think he will sign a little bit longer of a contract. He's just been bouncing around on these one-year contracts. And so I think he might isolate himself a little bit. I would like to see him as a Red Sox. That would be really cool just to see, because Corbin Burnes with a lower ERA would be crazy. And I know he's already dominant. So seeing that
for sure
would be really good. And I think the Red Sox are definitely ready to shell out some money. Next up, we have Jurickson Profar, left fielder for the Padres in the last season he played. He really broke out. He was one of the top prospects in 2022. But then once he actually got to the league, he kind of mellowed out until this year. Really big breakout year. Is not most likely to go to the Padres. The Padres did not extend his contract, which made him a free agent. However, Profar has expressed that he wants to stay with the Padres. Now, could the Padres use him? Necessarily, yes. But I don't know if that's the direction they're trying to head. As they maybe are trying to pull in some new guys, as they've also opted not to extend Ha-Seong Kim's contract as well. If the Red Sox lose out in the Juan Soto deal, again, they have that money. This could be a great pick for them as he's a big hitter. The Braves could attempt to get another outfielder as a backup or a replacement because they have Kelenic and Michael Harris, but Ronald Acuna won't be coming to month 1 or 2 of next season. And then finally, the Marlins could use a new heavy hitter. They've lost those big impact players that they have, and so that could definitely impact their mojo and what they've been doing and the trend they've been heading towards.
Yeah, especially the Marlins. You said the Marlins, correct? Not the Mariners?
Yes.
Yeah, the Marlins. I think especially after losing Jazz Chisholm to the Yankees, they don't have to pay him, so they can bring somebody else in and pay them. And I think that's really good for them because they could really use somebody like that.
Definitely.
Another free agent would be Max Fried, starting pitcher, and he played for the Braves. He's played for the Braves for a good amount of time, and he's finally a free agent this year. And it is not expected that he would sign back with the Braves, but one of the teams, or a few of the teams, that he could expect to sign with are the Orioles. And we just talked about the Orioles, talking about signing Corbin Burnes. But if Corbin Burnes does not sign with the Orioles, Max Fried is a great fit for them. He's a really good pitcher, a consistent lefty. A lefty pitcher it's a lot rarer than a righty pitcher.
Yeah.
Lefty pitchers are good, but they'd be a really good fit, and I really would like to see that there. So I think Max Fried did really good at the Orioles. Another team would be the Giants. With Snell going to the Dodgers just a while ago, he went to the Dodgers. It was announced, and really, he'd be a really good fit for them because they need a pitcher, especially with Blake Snell. Like I said, he is a starting pitcher. Losing him, they could really use someone like Max Fried. And you losing a lefty pitcher, Blake Snell is a lefty pitcher, and bringing in a lefty pitcher is really good. And I think Max Fried has a really good potential in the future with these teams, and I think he could do a really good job depending on which one. Another team he'd go with is the Rangers. And Nathan Eovaldi is a free agent for the Rangers. And if Nathan Eovaldi were signed with the Braves, the Rangers would need a pitcher. And if Max Fried would go to the Rangers, it would almost be like a trade. It'd be like Eovaldi for Max Fried. And I think that's actually a good trade. I think they're a pretty even pitcher. One's a righty, one's a lefty. One has more nasty stuff than the other. One has a bigger fastball, but one also has a little bit more consistency than the other. But I think it'd be almost like a trade. But of course, they're both free agents. But yeah, I think they both be really good. Two surprising teams. I think these are more long shot teams than they are surprising. But the Braves, they could sign him back. I don't expect they do, but it is a possibility. And then the Mets would be the other one. They're also a long shot. Same division, doesn't happen too much, but it can happen. But like I said earlier, the Mets really need a pitcher.
Yeah, definitely. The next one would be Anthony Santander. He's rejected. This one is not a shocker. But he's actually in the running. The Blue Jays are actually in the running to get Anthony Santander. The Blue Jays, they need a bat. George Springer does play left field. However, they could combined to make a right field and DH duo. Santander has played 75 games in left field since 2022. So they could end up putting Santander in left and leaving George Springer in right, but we'll just have to find out if that would happen. The Dodgers, they have that money to shell out, like we said. A great addition to their center fielder. Their current center fielder is James Outman, and so they could replace Santander and put him in center field. I think it's harder than you would think for outfielders to move around as they get used to those positions, but I think he could definitely achieve it as Santander is a really good playmaker out in the outfield. And then two surprising teams. The first would be the Tigers. Just having, like we said, one of those big bats to just kickstart their campaign to become a big standout team. I think the Tigers have made really smart, planned out moves, and so I think getting this one with the money that they have left over could be a really smart move and just help them. They're trying to become a standout team. I think what they've done on the past little bit has impressed me, and so I think they're moving towards just becoming that team that can stand their ground and stand their own. And then finally the Yankees. If the Juan Soto deal does fall through, they could need him as a replacement for their outfield.
I agree with that. I really like what you said about how hard it is. It really seems a lot harder for an outfielder to change positions in the outfield.
Yeah.
And I think I underestimate this. I know a lot of other people also underestimate this, but it is not easy, even to go from right to left.
Yeah.
It's just two different perspectives. You're seeing the ball from different ways. One, you're seeing it depending on which way the lights are different, the stands and the fans are different. It's just a whole different environment of the stadium. The wall might be closer, the wall might be farther out. You might be just playing a different position. Even the backups. If you know to back up first base, you're going to have to go back up third base and left field, and you're going to have to back up first base and right field on like a pickoff throw or something like that.
Yeah.
But so it's really different. I really like what you said because it's really hard to be able to move spots like that.
Yeah, and most people would think, oh, it's just another outfield position. But yeah, just like the different standpoints on the different spots where you're going to be sitting. And you would think it's just like from one outfield to another, they're running, they're catching the ball, what's different? But I think it's definitely different. And especially moving from left to right or right to left, that throw to third base is going to be much shorter and much farther depending on which way you move. And so that's going to be a lot different. And it's just like the different standpoints.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then another free agent is Pete Alonso. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. And like I said, one of the teams he needs to go to are the Yankees. And this is one of the biggest problems for the Yankees, is that their first base hole is pretty big. They have Anthony Rizzo, they have Ben Rice, but they've been okay, but they haven't been great. And Pete Alonso is great. I feel like the Yankees are more of a team who really like the power. They need that power hitters. They don't need someone who can consistently get on base. I mean, sure, I do love that. Someone like Gleyber Torres.
Yeah.
He's done a really good job there just being able to get on base. But I think Pete Alonso would be a really good fit for the Yankees, especially in that first base hole, and especially if they don't get Juan Soto. It's going to be really good for them. The Astros, sort of the first time we've sort of heard about them tonight. We heard a little bit about them with Alex Bregman earlier. But they also need a first baseman. And if they don't get Alex Bregman back, they could really use somebody else, especially with a power hitter. They need someone to power. They really need a power in that lineup. They need a first baseman. Or really, really badly need a first baseman. And I see a really good fit for Pete Alonso with the Astros. I think the Astros always have had a good amount of money, but they just haven't really, especially if they don't have to pay people like they did, like Alex Bregman. They really could go and get people like Pete Alonso. And then my last team before I get into the surprising teams would be the Mariners. And they're in the exact same boat as the Astros, could really use a power bat, and they also really need a first baseman.
The final free agent we have today is going to be Willy Adames. Really breakout guy last year. We saw him at shortstop with the Brewers. Another free agent that the Blue Jays are very projected to actually get would be Willy Adames. They are saying that if this would happen, that he could act as the third baseman in 2024, and then at the end of 2024, Bo Bichette's deal with the Blue Jays would expire, and then he would be a free agent, and so they could move him back over to shortstop if needed. Another team is the Astros. If they do not end up signing that deal with Bregman, then quite frankly, Willy Adames might be needed. Losing Bregman, and they could switch him over like the Blue Jays would to third base. Some surprising teams are the Braves. They need a shortstop. They've had Arcia for a couple years now. And while Arcia is a playmaker, he's not the greatest hitter. And so I think bringing an impact player like that and Willy Adames could really affect them in a good way. And then the Brewers, they haven't seemed too interested, but they need somebody like him who kind of just give them that energy. And I think if the Brewers don't end up re-signing Willy Adames, it's going to be hard for them to find another shortstop like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. All right, that was our section on the free agents and some of the biggest free agents in the game. There are a few more that we did not add because of our time that we had in this podcast, but those were some of the big ones, and we really hope you enjoyed that and learned a lot. Now, one of the next things we go to is our podcast is called the What You Missed Podcast, and we're going to talk about some things that you might have missed in baseball. Mm-hmm. The Orioles are moving their outfield fence in, and this is really cool because this is sort of really good for pitchers. And before the changes, this was back then, the Orioles actually moved their fence out, but now they're moving it back in because the environments, they moved the wall back and raised it to make the park more pitcher-friendly, mm-hmm. but the Orioles overdid it. So they changed. It was way too difficult for the hitters, but it was so easy for the pitchers. So the pitchers did really good there, and especially the right-hand hitters. But the changes led, and they're calling that section of the ballpark the Mount Waltimore. That's a funny name. I don't know exactly why they call it that. I didn't do too much research into it, but I really do think that's a pretty funny name. We might be able to pull up the why it was called that.
It's like Mount Baltimore. It's like Mount Baltimore, but Mount Waltimore because it's a wall.
Oh my goodness, Andrew.
Yeah.
Moving on. Anyways, though, they're moving the wall back not too far, but to also balance the environment and make it easy for pitchers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see the right-handers that might not have been able to shine as much as they could, that have had good seasons but not the greatest. Those right-handed pull hitters that maybe play for the Orioles will be more impactful as that moves in. I think it'll be easier for them to hit home runs, and that'll make them more of an impact.
Right. So they are moving the wall in, but it's actually more slightly towards pitchers to make the pitchers better, but it's not going to be completely impossible for the right-hand hitters to hit it out.
Yeah.
Another news, Jonathan India is getting traded to the Royals for Brady Singer, and these were two very impactful people last year. These are two big names. Jonathan India is going to do probably a really good job with Bobby Witt. Two middle infielders do a really good job. But Brady Singer was a great pitcher last year, and I think this is really crazy for the team to be able to give this up, the Royals to be able to give this up, because I think this is what they could have used more than Jonathan India, and I think they could have filled the hole at second base, but I think they should have kept Brady Singer, because I just don't see, sure, you see other people like Seth Lugo and other people like that on that team, but still, Brady Singer was a big addition to that team.
Yeah. I think for Jonathan India, I think he's going to be comfortable. I think switching from playing with Ellie De La Cruz to playing with Bobby Witt in that middle infield, I think it's definitely going to be a change of pace because, everybody has their different styles and different ways they interact. But I think playing with two I would say MVP caliber shortstops is going to really help Jonathan India thrive. And so playing with Bobby Witt, sure, it might be a little different than Ellie De La Cruz, but I think he's going to just be able to rely on that other guy that he has in the middle infield. I just like seeing Jonathan India play. I know he was a big prospect coming into the 2022 season, and I think he's really just thrived. I think I think he's a very consistent guy. Maybe he doesn't thrive and show out as much as some other people do, but I think he's definitely very consistent, and I've loved watching him play. Like you said, Brady Singer was a really big impact player for the Royals. I think he was definitely not the reason, but one of the guys that was very consistent for them last year. And I think one of the reasons that maybe the Royals did as well as they did and won more games was because they had a reliable pitcher like Brady Singer. I know they have Seth Lugo, but it's hard to lose a guy like Brady Singer.
Yeah, I agree with that. Something else that's happened is Rokai Sagaski is coming to the MLB. He is a pitcher coming from Japan, and he is nasty. He's really good. He has a fastball. He's a lot like Paul Skeens. Throws a lot of over 100 and over mile per hour fastballs, and he has a nasty splitter. That splitter drops like I've never seen a splitter drop before.
Yeah, I would encourage some of our listeners to just go and watch some clips of Rokai. It is absurd how hard his ball drops on that splitter and how hard he throws that fastball. It whizzes by people. And even we got to see him in the World Baseball Classic. And just seeing people that are MLB caliber and that are really good players just strike out like crazy to him was crazy, because just seeing that level of talent are other places and then that they could be joining the MLB like Rokai this year, it's just going to be really impactful. I think, like you said, there's insanely fast fastballs on average. It's going to be crazy and just fan a lot of players. And so I think that Rokai is going to have a really big contract. I think that it might be hard, as Rokai is actually projected maybe to go to the Dodgers, as he is friends with people like Shohei and people like
also really close to his
Yamamoto.
home.
And so it's super hard to see that, because you're like, is anybody going to be able to beat this Dodgers team? Because you feel like they're getting every good free agent on the market.
For real.
And so while that might not be true, they're not getting every free agent on the market. It is hard because you see that they just have this almost never-ending cash flow. And so if they're going to get all these good prospects, we saw Yamamoto. He was very impressive. And I was really impressed by him. And so I think just seeing all these guys come from Japan and immediately scooped up by the Dodgers, with the exception of Shohei, but he is finally in the Dodgers franchise. And so I think it's just hard. The Dodgers are going to be a really hard team to beat.
I agree with that.
If they weren't already this year, they're going to be really hard, and especially if they get Rokai. But I think wherever Rokai is going, he's going to thrive. I think it's not going to be a learning curve just because he's going from those Japan leagues to the MLB. I think he really has the caliber, and a young guy too. At 23, he really has that time to develop. And so he's just starting. And so he is definitely going to be a once-in-a-generation talent. And I think it's just crazy to me just seeing these new guys. And it's super cool to see just these new guys burst on the scene and just show what they can do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Another person is coming to the MLB. Ha-Seong Kim is a second baseman. And he is actually not related to Ha-Seong Kim. It does sound like Ha-Seong Kim. It sounds like something a mom or dad would do. But they're not related. They also both play the middle infield spots, and so they're actually not related though. And I think Ha-Seong Kim has done a really good job in the Japanese leagues, and he can do very well in the MLB too. Just an update though. This was announced a few days that he is going to be pushing the MLB in just a few weeks.
Yeah, I think it's just, like I said, just fun to watch these guys just push onto the scene that maybe we never heard of. But he's just going to be another really impactful guy and somebody that's going to be really versatile.
Yeah. Another update. We have a few more updates. Nolan Arenado could be traded. And this is an update I saw a little while ago. And I think this is crazy. They do not have to say where he would be traded, but the Cardinals are willing to trade Nolan Arenado. I think Nolan Arenado is a big pickup for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think he's definitely been impactful for the Cardinals. And so he's been on their team since 2021. And so I think he's just been a guy who's been in the league for a while. He definitely knows what he's doing. He could be a sneaky player with a big bat. And so I think just the fact that he could be traded somewhere as the Cardinals are looking to get maybe some more top prospects or something like that to just really just help out their team in spots that they need to fill. It's just really cool. And I don't know where Nolan Arenado is going to go. But I'm just excited to see if he does get traded or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, one of the last few things before we get into two little fun things, we're going to talk about Blake Snell going to the Dodgers, and this is actually really funny because we were going to talk about Blake Snell in our free agent thing, and then all of a sudden he wasn't a free agent anymore.
Yeah.
So we had to move into the what you missed part about it, and so Blake Snell at the Dodgers, a really big pickup, 2023 Cy Young winner. I'm really confident in what Blake Snell will do with the Dodgers. I think he'll do a great job.
Yeah, Blake Snell, 2 Cy Youngs under his belt. Just a really impactful pitcher. Definitely shows what he can do a lot. He's really consistent, really knows what he's doing. Definitely later in his years, but I think he's going to be really impactful for the Dodgers. I think he's a really good pitcher. I'm just, adding to that domination of that Dodgers team. Just when they add those starting pitchers, it's just going to be even harder to stop them. Now, I'm not saying that nobody can, but I'm just saying it's definitely going to be harder to stop that Dodger team.
Yeah, the Dodgers, if they get Rokai and they already have Blake Snell, it's going to be a very, very hard team to beat.
Yeah.
Especially with already Yamamoto, Shohei, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Tusker Hernandez. It's going to be a dangerous team. If they get Juan Soto, too, because they are an option for Juan Soto. They have sent him offers. Juan Soto's beginning to receive offers, by the way. This is big for if this is big for the Dodgers. This is one of the most... If they get Juan Soto, it would be a very, very stacked team. And one of the most stacked teams we might have ever seen in baseball.
Like I'm saying, there's never any cash flow. Where Shohei definitely helped him out with only receiving a couple million from his contract each year. So the Dodgers have more money. But it's just crazy to me how much money they have. And I think they've just been showing us what they can do. And so, like we said, if they can get those good guys, they already have so many impactful players. And so many small players that you see become impactful, like Tommy Edman winning that NLCS MVP. And so just guys that are playing small ball, but are coming out in big ways. And so I think just Their prospects are good. Everybody is good, and so I think it's going to be hard to beat the Dodgers this year. I think it's definitely doable, and I think there's definitely some teams that could totally surprise us and be just definitely go out of their way to be insane. But I think with these Dodgers projected pickups and free agent signings, I think it's just going to be hard to beat the Dodgers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really like what you said about like how much money was sort of just floating around with the Dodgers, and I think really just talking about like floating around the money. I think the world of sports has so much money.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing like Carson Beck right now for the quarterback for the UG Bulldogs. He is getting paid around $4 million a year right now.
Yeah,
and he is in college.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a job in football that's college. If you're getting paid $4 million a year, like what do you need to do with your life?
Yeah.
I mean, really, like that's just not. I think we need to be able to be using our money in sports to do something else. And sports didn't used to be this, like the NIL deals didn't all used to be here. It used to be a very much cheaper sport and just for fun sport until you got to the NFL. But in college, it's getting really difficult. And the MLB, there's just money floating around everywhere. You've seen Shohei sign the most money anyone's ever signed.
Yeah.
Ever in baseball. And that is insane. And I think really we're so blessed in the USA. We have so much money just floating around that we can just use on sports. And I think that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen it in like different countries where like surprised by Shohei Ohtani making $700 million contracts.
Yeah.
But I think what shows you even more is that Shohei has those deals like he does with New Balance. He's a New Balance partner, and so he's making so much money that he can defer the $680 million to the end. And so I think it's just crazy that he's going to make only $2 million a year until 2034, and then $68 million annually for the next 10 years. And so, like you said, just so much money in that world of sports, and it's just crazy to see that much money.
Yeah, it really is crazy. Two more things before we get into our award winners, and are we surprised by those or not? The Amy Notre Dame game, the football game, was played in the Bronx, and it's really cool because the Ohio State Purdue game was played at Wrigley about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool because we've been seeing a lot of different sports events turn into different things. I think it's really cool. We're seeing football fields turn into baseball fields. We see next year the MLB and NASCAR teaming up to turn Bristol into a baseball field for the Reds and Braves series next year, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I really like seeing how different sports are combining with other sports to really be able to connect and really be able to see what would happen to make it a little bit more interesting. I would love to go watch a Navy-Army game, two ranked teams play in the Bronx Stadium.
Cool.
I think that's just amazing.
Yeah, and so I think it was really cool that they did that. I think just watching it on TV was crazy because you just see that like the mound is covered up.
Mm-hmm.
They've totally just eradicated all baseball aspects of it, but you still see that Yankee Stadium. You get to just see all those people just watching, surrounding it. And I think it's really cool where they're partnering these two sports that everybody knows, everybody loves, and just bringing them together. And I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I know, it's great. It's like your QB can go warm up in the bullpen.
Yeah.
If your QB gets hurt, you can just go warm up in the bullpen. And I mean, I think that's awesome. I think that would be a lot of fun. I don't think they actually ever did that, but like if they ever needed to like warm up before the game and go in the bullpen, I think that'd be hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. So now we're gonna move into our award winners. So just discussing what it is, if we're surprised, if we're not surprised by each award winner. So for the Cy Young, we have Chris Sale and Tariq Skubal. Were you surprised by either of these two?
No, actually. These were some of the people I was really not surprised about. Chris Sale had a really dominant year. Triple Crown winner. He did a really good job. And then Tariq Skubal was right behind him in all the stats. So really, I wasn't surprised about either one of these.
Definitely. I think Corbin Burns did have another good year. But just they didn't stand up to, like you said, Chris Sale winning that Triple Crown. Big deal. Really big deal. And then Tariq Skubal, like you said, just behind Chris Sale, just barely in every single stat, or almost every stat. And just watching them two go at it for that title, it's just really cool to see.
Well, one second, sorry. I think it's really cool because like I said earlier, I was just talking about how many lefty, the lefties aren't too big in the game right now, but these Chris Sale and Tariq Skubal were both lefties. And two lefties to go out and win the Cy Young, I think that's pretty cool.
Definitely. The next one we have is the MVPs. I wouldn't even have to say their name, and you would not be surprised at all. It's Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge, two large hitters. Was not surprised at all. Shohei Ohtani breaking that 50-50, really seeing him fast on his feet this year, and then Aaron Judge just smacking home runs, getting back to the form he was used to. And then he's kind of struggled at the beginning of the year, but I knew he'd pull it out. And Aaron Judge just smacking home run after home run, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think really it was not surprising. Unanimous 2 years in a row, and Shohei won back-to-back MVPs. And I really do think that this is a very, very impressive. I think it's going to be a lot harder, especially with Shohei Ohtani moving over from the Angels, so he's not on the AL anymore. So him and Aaron Judge can both win it. And I think that's actually really important for Aaron Judge. Because I think Aaron Judge, it's going to be the only person. Shohei was the only person stopping him from winning the MVP.
Yeah.
Really, I think now that Shohei's gone, I think Aaron Judge is way on the top of the list. I mean, sure, you got Bobby Witt and other people like that who I really liked, like J-Ram, really like to contend for that. But I really do think Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani might not be their last MVP.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think both of them were really impactful players. And so, like you said, when Shohei Ohtani moved from the Angels to the Dodgers, it opened up that spot for Aaron Judge to win that MVP. And then I think that Shohei Ohtani might not go away as the MVP. As he can pitch, not at the start of the year, but going into the year, he will be able to pitch again. And so if he's impactful, hitting-wise, just as he was this year, but then also pitching, I think it's going to be a crazy stat line. It's just really cool to see. It's going to be electric like it was this year. And then you just have Aaron Judge was knocking balls, struggled a little bit at the beginning of the season, and had a couple of droughts. But towards the end of the year, we really got to see him just thrive.
Yeah, middle of the year was really good. End of the year got worse and worse as it went on, but he was still really good.
Yeah. Just a really impactful player. And as you said, unanimous decision 2 years in a row. Finally, we have the Rookie of the Year. We had Luis Gil and Paul Skeens, two really impactful pitchers. Were you surprised by this?
Yes, I actually thought Luis Gil was going to win. I actually had him. I made a trade for him halfway through the fantasy baseball season and picked him up because I saw he was doing a really good job. And I wasn't really surprised. I feel like the AL was a little lower on the Rookie of the Year people than the AL or than the NL was. Yeah. But Paul Skeens won the NL. Like you said, I was actually a little surprised with this. Paul Skeens. A lot of people are actually not surprised about this, but like Paul Skeens coming in, he sort of came in more in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
Than he actually did like Jackson Mayo. I thought Jackson Mayo was going to win it just because Jackson Mayo had sort of been there all year and was doing a really good impact.
Yeah.
He was one of the best heroes in the Padres, and the Padres have Luis Arraez, Fernando Tatis Jr., they had Jerkson Profar. They might not have him after this year, but they had some really impactful hitters that I think would be crazy. I think this was really good because he was a rookie, and he did really well in the outfield too. So I already think, but this is the first time, they're both pitchers, it's the first time since 2011, two pitchers have won the Rookie of the Year. 2011 was Craig Kimbrell, he was the Atlanta closer, he is now the Orioles closer, I believe. And then Jeremy, he was the Tampa Bay Rays starting pitcher. That was the last time someone won, and now we've done it again in 2024. So I think that was really cool to be able to see two pitchers that really made an impactful time.
Yeah, that is super rare. And I think just watching them both, they were really electric and just really fun to watch. Paul Skeens, as we talked about earlier, just throwing that heat and then also being able to control those different off-speed pitches. And then also Luis Gil, just really impactful, like you said, over the second half of the season. Just really proved himself.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, our last section of this episode would be the Angels on the move. The Angels have made a ton of moves this season. We're just going to start off. I'm just going to go and tell you all the moves they make, and then not expecting more. I'm expecting them to make more moves as they run in the future.
Definitely.
Ron Washington, coming over from being the third base coach at Atlanta, has done a really good job. And the funny thing is, he's actually made two moves for Atlanta players this year. Starting pitcher, UC Kochi. Came over from the Astros. He was a free agent. He made a 3-year, $63 million deal with the starting pitcher, which they could very much use. Infielder Kevin Newman on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. Catcher Travis d'Arnaud from the Braves. Travis d'Arnaud has been at the Braves for a long, long time. And I think that it was really crazy to see him let go, especially after the season he had last year. Signing him on a two-year, $2.25 million $1 million contract. And I think this is crazy because you see Travis d'Arnaud, who has had a lot of impact with the Braves and has done a really good job, and you see Kevin Newman. And Kevin Newman gets a 1-year, $2.5 million. But Travis Darno gets a 2-year, $2.5 million. $2.25 million deal.
Yeah, I think it's just crazy to see that the difference in Kevin Newman, the 1 year, $2.5 million, and then Travis Darno is actually $12 million.
Oh,
12.25.
was it really?
Sorry. And so
My apologies.
yeah, you're good. And so yeah, $12 million deal. I think it was really crazy to see him let go. And I was just beginning the question: the Braves really couldn't afford a 2-year, $12 million contract. And so now the Braves have backup catcher Chadwick Trump. But I think Travis Darno really proved himself. And so I thought that was really surprising that the Braves would let him go after he's proved himself, after he's been with the team for so long. And so I thought that was really surprising to me.
All right. Well, yeah, never mind. I'm not surprised that Kevin Newman got a 1 year, $2.5 million, and Travis Darno had a 2 year, not 2.25, but $12 million. I don't know how I got this mixed up. Dyslexia kicking in, you know. They got a starting pitcher, Kyle Hendricks, coming over from the Cubs, and they gave him a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. And then they made a trade. This is the first trade of the offseason, was trading with the Braves. They got Travis Darno from the Braves. They also got Jorge Soler, who was he's a really good power hitter. I think he's going to do really well with Ron Washington. The Angels, Ron Washington, and him were on the World Series. We're on the World Series team for the Braves a few years ago, and I really do think it's really good. But the Braves got Griffin Canning, and then for some reason they decided not to
extend him an offer.
Yeah, I don't know what that completely was about. I think the thing about the Braves is that the Braves just haven't been using the money.
Yeah.
I don't really see the Braves. They could be saving it for Acuna. They could be doing other stuff like that. But, really, we're just not seeing what we have from people, from the Braves. We haven't seen, they just haven't really spent a lot of money lately. They didn't spend the money to keep Freddie. They've just been going and getting little people who have paid off, like Matt Olson. Sean Murphy was really good 2 years ago. He struggled last year. But really, I think they just haven't spent enough money. I'm really waiting for them to really spend money on somebody. I don't know who they're waiting for or what they're waiting for. But I really do think I'm ready to spend money on them. And I think that's really odd, though, when you go trade for somebody and then drop the guy you trade for.
Yeah, I think that's really strange. I know Anthropoulos is really good at, getting people to, sign contracts for low amounts of money that he sees potential in, but not everybody sees potential in. And so they'll agree to those low deals, and then they'll definitely end off paying off. But if we have the money, if the Braves have the money, if we have the money stocked up somewhere, wherever the Braves keep their money, why aren't we spending it? Why aren't we using that money? If we have that money, sure, you can bet your money on small prospects, but what is the point if you have all this money, you're just going to save it? What is the point? I know those prospects work, but at the same time, sure, maybe you need to extend people's contracts like Ozzy, like Acuna. Those are those that end soon. But I think just use that money. Get the Braves one more good player that could really make an impact.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think both of us being Braves fans, I think we really, really debated what the Braves are doing.
Yeah,
and it's really been confusing because why aren't we going after someone like Willie Adames, Nathan? We are in the market for Nathan Eovaldi, Willie Adames. So why are we not the top prospects with all the money we have? We haven't really spent that much money in a few years. Sure, we could be saving it for Acuna, but still, we should be able to just spend money on somebody. I don't know who we're waiting for, what we're waiting for, but we haven't really tried at anybody really. Yeah, I feel like that's something we can get really that can get us really just confused.
Yeah, but back to the Angels, I think what they've done is really impactful, and I think it's already having somebody like Pilar, who did really good last year in the outfield.
Great
insane defensive player, did really good for them. And then you have the young guys like Logan and Hoppy, who are just really impacting the team. I was surprised they let Griffin Canning go, as he was one of their good starting pitchers. But
they got Soler.
They do have Soler now. And, there's always the option on the table that they could re-sign Griffin Canning if they wanted to, as he is a free agent now. And so I think they just made a lot of impactful moves. I'm excited to see what the Angels have potential for this year, and it's just going to be really cool to see.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Everything we have to say about the different rumors and different things that's going on with the free agents on the market. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.